My own parents sued me for $745,000, not because I owed them money, but because they said I owed them a house I never agreed to buy. They had already put my name on the mortgage, without my knowledge, without my consent. I didn't find out from them. I found out through a collections notice. When I called my mother, Chelsea, shaking, barely able to keep my voice steady, and demanded an explanation, she said 5 words I still hear in my head when I can't sleep. "We decided you should pay." When I refused, they didn't apologize. They sued me. And in court, my own sister took the stand, claiming I had promised to help them. But there was something they didn't know. Something I had been keeping for years, saved, organized, untouched, waiting for the day I would need proof that I wasn't the one losing my mind. Before, if this story actually resonates with you, and tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I read every comment. Now let me take you back. Because to understand how this happened, you need to understand how I became the villain in my own family, for the simple act of saying no. Growing up, there were 2 daughters in the Nichols household, and everyone knew which one mattered more. Vanessa was the golden child, warm, effortlessly charming, always knew exactly what to say and when to say it. She laughed at my dad's jokes, helped my mom in the kitchen without being asked, and somehow made every relative feel like they were her favorite person in the room. Teachers loved her. Neighbors smiled when she walked by. She was the kind of daughter parents proudly talked about in public. And then, there was me. I was quiet, focused. I preferred numbers over conversations, spreadsheets over small talk. While Vanessa collected compliments, I collected straight A's. Not because I needed approval, but because numbers made sense in a way people never did. When I passed my CPA exam at 26, I called home expecting, at the very least, a congratulations. Instead, my father said, "So, when are you getting married like your sister?" Vanessa had married Brandon Carter at 24. By 28, she had 2 kids. My parents supported them for 5 straight years. Monthly checks, no questions, no conditions. When I graduated with student loans, I paid off every dollar myself. No one offered help. No one even asked. Every holiday followed the same script. My mom would sit there watching Vanessa bounce one of her kids on her knee, smiling like she had everything she ever wanted. Then she'd turn to me, with that look, the one that said I was missing something essential. "You should learn from your sister," she'd say, gently patting my hand like I was a project she still believed she could fix. "Vanessa knows how to make people love her." At some point, I stopped expecting praise. Because I realized it didn't matter what I achieved, I was never going to earn it. The rules were different for me. They always had been. I just didn't realize how different, until they needed something from me. The label came slowly, then all at once. Skylar, the selfish one. It started 3 years ago. Vanessa called, asking for $18,500. Her car had broken down, transmission failure, and Brandon's income wasn't covering expenses the way it used to. She promised she'd pay me back within 6 months. I said no, not because I couldn't afford it, but because she still owed me $9,200 from the last time, money I never saw again, never even got a thank you for. That night, my mom called me crying. "How can you be so cold to your own sister?" 6 months later, Vanessa asked me to co-sign her apartment lease. Her credit wasn't strong enough, and the landlord wanted a guarantor. I said no again. I explained, calmly, that co-signing meant legal responsibility. If she defaulted, it wouldn't just affect her. It would fall on me. My dad didn't argue. He just disappeared. 3 weeks of silence, no calls, no texts. Just that quiet, calculated punishment. Then came my nephew's 5th birthday party. I couldn't go. I had a deadline for a major audit at work. Missing it would have put my job at risk. I sent a gift. I called to apologize. That night, Vanessa posted on Facebook, "Family should always come first." Sad when some people forget that. 47 likes. To that, I started documenting everything, every request, every refusal, every guilt trip that followed. I created an email folder called Family Requests. Not because I was bitter, but because when people tell you you're the problem long enough, you start needing proof that you're not. That folder would eventually become the most important thing I owned. I just didn't know it yet. Months later, the envelope looked ordinary, standard bank letterhead. My name printed in that cold, impersonal font every financial institution uses. I almost threw it away with the junk mail. Second notice. The header read, Mortgage Payment Overdue Property Address, 7321, Desert Willow Drive, Scottsdale, Arizona. I had never heard of Desert Willow Drive. I had never even been to Scottsdale. My hands went numb as I kept reading. Outstanding balance, $745,000. Cosigner, Skylar M. Nichols. For a second I couldn't breathe. I called the bank immediately. The representative who answered sounded calm, professional, completely unaware she was about to dismantle my entire reality. Yes, Ms. Nichols, you are listed as a co-signer on this mortgage. The account was opened approximately a year ago. The primary borrowers are Jeremy Nichols and Vanessa Nichols Carter. There has to be some kind of mistake, I said. But even to me, my voice didn't sound real. I have the application in front of me, ma'am. Your signature is on file. The documents were notarized on September 15th, 2023. Notarized. That word echoed in my head. Someone had watched a signature be placed on paper and certified it as legitimate. A signature I never wrote. For a house I never agreed to buy. For a sister who never even asked. While still on the call, I pulled up my credit report, and there it was. A $745,000 liability attached to my name like a parasite, quietly dragging my credit score down for over a year while I had no idea it even existed. The mailing address on file? My parents' house, the one I hadn't lived in for 10 years. I thanked the representative, ended the call, and just sat there, staring at the letter. 10 minutes passed. Maybe more. I kept trying to make it make sense, trying to understand how my own family had done this to me. That night, I called my mother, and what she said, I still hear it when everything else goes quiet. She picked up on the third ring, light, cheerful, like nothing had happened. Skylar, what a nice surprise. We were just talking about you. Did you put my name on a mortgage? Silence. 3 seconds. 4. It felt endless. We were going to tell you. Her tone shifted, controlled now, careful. Tell me what, Mom? I heard movement on the other end, my dad's voice in the background. Then the phone changed hands. This is family, Skylar, Jeremy said. Vanessa needed the house. You have a stable career. We decided you should help. You decided? My hands were shaking now. Without asking me? We raised you. We paid for everything growing up. This is what family does. I paid off my own student loans. Every dollar. You paid for Vanessa's entire education. That's different, he snapped. You've always been difficult. Then my mom took the phone back. I could hear it in her voice. That familiar tremble. The one she used whenever she wanted to turn herself into the victim. If you loved us, Skylar, you wouldn't make this so hard. Make what hard? My voice sharpened. You forged my signature. That's fraud. Don't be dramatic, Jeremy cut in again, irritation creeping in. We used your name on paperwork. It's not a crime when it's family. It absolutely is. We don't have the money, Skylar. His voice cracked, the first time I had ever heard that from him. We used our retirement savings for the down payment. Most of it. If we lose this house, we lose everything. And there it was. The truth, stripped of excuses. They had gambled their entire future on Vanessa's dream home and expected me to absorb the consequences. You're 32, he went on. No husband, no kids. What do you even need that kind of money for? I hung up. Some questions don't deserve answers. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I started researching. The numbers were brutal. If that mortgage defaulted with my name attached, my credit score would collapse. 7 years of damage, minimum. Collection calls. Potential lawsuits from the bank. And my career? At risk. Accounting firms don't just trust numbers, they verify the people handling them. A foreclosure on my record could destroy everything I had spent a decade building. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was my future. At 2 a.m. And I called Ethan Brooks. We had been friends in college, late nights studying accounting together, surviving exams no one else could understand. He went into real estate law after graduation, specialized in mortgage fraud and property disputes. "Skylar," he muttered, half asleep, "do you know what time it is?" "I know. I'm sorry. I need help." I told him everything. The letter, the phone call, the way my parents admitted, so casually, that they had signed my name without permission. He went quiet. Then, "If you didn't sign anything, this is identity fraud. Forgery. This is serious. What do I do?" "First, request copies of everything. The loan application, the notarized documents. You're legally entitled to them." He paused. "Second, do you have any proof that you never agreed to this?" My mind went straight to the folder. The emails, the refusals, every time I had said no. "I emailed Vanessa 3 years ago," I said slowly. "When she asked me to co-sign her lease, I told her no, in writing. I said I would never co-sign anything for her." That wasn't the first time she had tried. "Send that to me." His voice was sharp now, focused. "That's exactly the kind of evidence we need." Then he said something that stayed with me, something I didn't fully understand until much later. "Your signature is your word. If someone forges it, they're not just stealing money, they're stealing your identity." At 3 a.m. I found that email. I read it twice, then I forwarded it to Ethan. 2 weeks later, I drove to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. Not because I wanted to be there, but because I needed to look them in the eye when I said no. The driveway was already full when I pulled up, cars I didn't recognize lining both sides. My stomach tightened before I even stepped out. Inside, it wasn't just my parents and Vanessa. Linda Harper, Thomas Harper, Grandpa Walter, 3 cousins I hadn't seen in years. The table was set for 12. This wasn't Thanksgiving. This was a setup. Vanessa stood first, arms folded tightly across her chest. "We all know why we're here." My father nodded toward the table. "Skylar, sit down. We need to talk. As a family." "About what?" I stayed where I was. "Your sister needs this house," he said. "And this family needs you to step up." Linda leaned forward, her tone sharp. "You've always been the selfish one, Skylar. This is your chance to prove us wrong." Everyone was watching, waiting. The pressure in that room felt thick, like the air before a storm breaks. I didn't sign anything. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You said you would help. When? Give me a date." "Christmas dinner, 2 years ago," she said. "You said you'd think about it." "Thinking isn't agreeing." You nodded. Her voice rose. "We all saw you nod. A nod isn't a contract. It is in this family." "Then this family has a very loose definition of consent." Thomas muttered something under his breath about ungrateful kids. Grandpa Walter said nothing. My mom was already crying, quiet, controlled tears, the kind designed to turn me into the villain without saying a word. Then my father stood. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, cutting through the room. Silence. "Then you leave us no choice." The words didn't sound like a discussion. They sounded like a warning. "No choice about what?" I asked. His jaw tightened, that familiar look, the one that meant his decision was already made. "We're giving you until December 15th. Either you agree to take over the mortgage, or we sue you." For a second, the room felt like it shifted under my feet. "Sue me?" I said. "My own parents? Sue me for what?" "Breach of verbal agreement," he said. "Vanessa is our witness. She'll testify that you promised to help." I looked at my sister. She couldn't even meet my eyes, just sat there, arms wrapped around herself, playing the role she had perfected her entire life. "You'd lie under oath?" I asked her. "Perjure yourself?" "It's not lying," she said quietly. if that's how I remember it. My mom rushed toward me, grabbing my hands. Her face was wet, desperate. "Skylar, please. We're your parents. How can you do this to us?" I pulled my hands back. The contact felt wrong now, almost contaminated. "You committed fraud," I said. "You stole my identity, and you're asking what I'm doing to you?" "It's family money," she insisted. "It's not stealing when it's family." At the end of the table, Grandpa Walter sat still, 84 years old, silent in a way that didn't feel empty, but deliberate. When our eyes met, there was no anger there, no judgment, just something deeper, something that looked a lot like pity. "December 15th, my father repeated. 3 weeks. I picked up my coat, my keys, whatever was left of my composure. "I'll see you in court." As I walked out, I heard my mom break into full sobs. Linda called me heartless. Voices rose behind me, but not once, not a single time, did anyone say the word sorry. The whole drive home, one thing stayed with me. Grandpa's face. He knew something. I was sure of it. I had almost reached my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, uneven, his cane tapping lightly against the driveway. "Skylar, wait." I turned. He was slightly out of breath from the short walk, 84 years old, following me into the cold because no one else would. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," I said. "I can't stay in there." "I know." He reached me, steadying himself. His eyes were clearer than anyone else's in that house. "You shouldn't." "Did you know about the mortgage?" He hesitated. "I found out after. Tried to talk your father out of it. He wouldn't listen. He never does." Something shifted inside my chest. All those years of wondering if I was the problem. And here was the only person telling me I wasn't. "Check the notary date," he said quietly. "On the mortgage documents. Something's off." "What do you mean?" "Just check it." He squeezed my arm. "And Skylar, your grandmother would be proud of you. She never stood up to Harold Sr. She always wished she had." Grandma had been gone for years. I barely remembered her, but I remembered she was kind, in a family that wasn't. I hugged him carefully. His frame felt fragile beneath his coat. Then I got in my car and drove home in silence, no music, no distractions. Just the road, and the realization that I was leaving behind a family that had never really been mine. That night, I opened my laptop and started digging. Grandpa was right. Something wasn't just wrong, it was very wrong. If you've ever been made to feel like the villain just for having boundaries, neither am I. And if this is hitting close to home, A-like really helps more people see it. Now let me show you what I found when I pulled those mortgage records. Because that's where everything started to unravel. Under federal law, I had the right to request copies of any financial documents tied to my name. I submitted the request that week. The bank responded within 10 days. When the envelope arrived, I sat at my kitchen table for a full minute before opening it. Whatever was inside was either going to confirm my worst fear or prove I had somehow gotten everything wrong. I hadn't. The mortgage file was 12 pages. My signature appeared on 3 of them. I placed the documents under my desk lamp, comparing them to my real signature on my driver's license. At first glance, they looked convincing, but the more I studied them, the clearer it became. Something was off. My S always curved slightly backward at the top, a habit from years of rushing through paperwork during tax season. But these? They curved forward, rounder, slower, written by someone who knew what my signature looked like, but had never actually seen me write it. Then I checked the notary date. September 15th, 2023. My chest tightened. I pulled up my calendar, scrolled back, and there it was. September 14th through 17th. AICP, a annual conference, San Diego. I had been over 300 miles away when someone signed my name on a $745,000 mortgage. I had the boarding pass, the hotel receipt, a photo I had posted, standing with 2 colleagues in front of the waterfront, time-stamped the exact same day. The document claimed I had signed in person, witnessed by a notary in Arizona, on a day I wasn't even in the state. Someone had forged my signature, and someone else, a licensed notary, had certified that lie as legitimate. I sent everything to Ethan that same night. His reply came back in under 3 minutes. "This is exactly what I needed. We're done playing defense. Now we go on offense." Ethan immediately filed a subpoena for the bank's internal records. As part of preparing our counterclaim, we were entitled to any communications tied to my mortgage application. The bank complied within 2 weeks. Routine, when fraud is involved. What they sent changed everything. Ethan called me on a Tuesday evening. I could hear it in his voice before he even spoke. The shift, the intensity. "Skylar, I need you sitting down for this. Just tell me. There's an email thread between Vanessa and the loan officer who processed your application. His name is Daniel Ruiz." He started reading. Each line felt heavier than the last. Email 1. From Vanessa. "Is there any way to add my sister to the application without her being physically present? She's traveling for work and won't be available to sign." Email 2. Daniel's reply. "If she has power of attorney or can complete a verified remote signing, we can proceed. Otherwise, she needs to be present for notarization." Email 3. Vanessa. "She can't do remote signing. She's at a conference with limited access, but my dad can handle the paperwork for her. Would that be acceptable?" Email 4. Daniel. "As long as the documents are properly notarized, we can move forward." Ethan stopped reading. That last line lingered. "As long as the documents are properly notarized." Which meant Daniel Ruiz either didn't know or didn't care that my father was about to forge my signature and have someone stamp it as valid. "He cut corners," Ethan said flatly. "No identity verification. No confirmed consent. That's a major compliance failure." I sat there, staring at the wall. Reading those emails felt like watching my own life get stolen in slow motion. And every single person involved thought they'd get away with it. Ethan told me to file a formal report. Identity fraud. Forgery. Criminal complaints. Even if the civil case went sideways, there needed to be a record. So I did. Wednesday morning, I went to the Scottsdale Police Department, filled out the paperwork, handed over everything: the mortgage documents, my flight records, the email chain. The officer who took my statement was polite, professional, non-committal. "We'll be in touch," she said. I didn't expect much. A week later, my phone rang. Unknown number, Arizona area code. "Miss Nichols, this is Detective Olivia Grant with the Financial Crimes Unit." I nearly dropped my coffee. "I've reviewed the materials you submitted," she said. "Based on the evidence, we're opening a formal investigation into potential identity fraud and forgery." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we'll be contacting the notary who certified your signature, as well as the loan officer who processed the application. We may also request additional documentation from the bank." She paused. "This is a serious matter, Miss Nichols. Mortgage fraud carries significant penalties." "I understand," I said. "I just have one question." Her tone shifted slightly, measured. "Do you believe your family knew this was illegal?" That question hit harder than I expected, not because I didn't know the answer, but because saying it out loud made it real. "I don't think they cared," I said finally. "They needed money. They saw me as the solution. Whatever laws they broke, whatever it did to my credit, my career, it didn't matter to them as long as they got what they wanted." Silence. Then, "We'll be in touch, Miss Nichols. In the meantime, save any communication you receive from your family. It may become relevant." I saved everything. I'd learned that lesson a long time ago. December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. A process server found me at work. Efficient, detached, like this was just another routine delivery. "Skylar Nichols?" "Yes." "You've been served." Inside the envelope, Jeremy Nichols and Chelsea Nichols versus Skylar Nichols, filed in Maricopa County. Superior Court damages sought, $745,000, plus legal fees and court costs. The complaint was 8 pages long: breach of oral contract, unjust enrichment. They claimed I had verbally agreed to help with the mortgage, then backed out, causing them financial damage and emotional distress. Vanessa was listed as a witness. She would testify under oath that I had promised to help during a family dinner, that my nod was as good as a signature, that I had betrayed my own family over money. I read it twice in my office, door closed, hands steady only because I forced them to be. This was real. My parents weren't bluffing. They had hired a real lawyer, Richard Coleman, from a downtown firm. And they were taking me to court. The same people who had raised me, who taught me to ride a bike, helped me with homework, sat in the front row at my graduation, were now asking a judge to force me to pay for a house my sister lived in, using a promise I never made as their weapon. I called Ethan. He picked up immediately. I got served. Expected, he said, calm, ready. Don't panic. We're more than prepared. They didn't even mention the forged signature, I said. The entire case is built on a verbal agreement. Because they know the documents are a liability, he replied. They're avoiding that angle on purpose. Will that work? No, a pause. Because we're not going to let it. And apparently, the lawsuit still wasn't enough for my family. They didn't just want the courtroom, they wanted the court of public opinion too. Vanessa posted first. A long, carefully worded message on Facebook, crafted to sound heartfelt, but precise enough to shape the narrative. Some people value money more than family. I never imagined my own sister would stand by while our parents risk losing everything they've worked for. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. Within had opinions, old classmates, distant relatives, neighbors, all offering sympathy, all condemning the unnamed villain. Linda Harper commented, "Praying for you, sweetheart. Some people eventually show who they really are." Emily Harper, "Family should always come first. So sad when someone forgets that." A friend from my old neighborhood texted me a screenshot. "Have you seen this? Everyone's talking about you." I had. I watched it unfold in real time. The story they were building. Skylar the cold one. Skylar the selfish one. Skylar who abandoned her family over money. What they didn't post, the forged signature, the identity theft, the mortgage I never agreed to, because those details didn't fit the version of the story they needed. I wrote a response, deleted it, wrote another, deleted that too. Ethan had warned me this would happen. "Social media is a war you can't win," he said. "Anything you say can be twisted. Let them talk. The courtroom is the only place that matters." So I stayed silent and watched my reputation get rewritten by people who never once asked for my side. The hardest part wasn't the accusations. It was true. They had already decided who I was. They always had. Christmas came, almost unnoticed. I had been so deep in depositions, documents, and legal prep that the holiday barely registered until the day itself. I found out about the family gathering through Instagram. Lucas Carter, Vanessa's oldest, posted a story. Everyone was there, matching pajamas, smiling in front of the tree. My parents, Vanessa, Brandon, the kids, Linda with her oversized wine glass, even Grandpa Walter sitting in his usual chair by the fireplace. Everyone, except me. No invitation, no call, not even a message asking if I wanted to come. I had been erased. From the picture, from the family. I watched the story 3 times, studied the smiles, the laughter, the performance of unity, built against the daughter who dared to say no. Later that evening, my mom sent one text. "You chose this. Remember that." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I spent Christmas alone, ordered Thai food, poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the couch with case files spread around me like the worst kind of holiday decorations. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. A private message from Grandpa Walter's account. He barely knew how to use Instagram. Someone must have helped him set it up. "I'm sorry, I tried to stop them. They wouldn't listen. Merry Christmas, Skylar." That's when I cried. For the first time since all of this started. Not because I had been excluded, I expected that, but because one person, just one, had seen me, had understood the truth, and had the courage to say it. That night, I opened my laptop, found the email from 3 years ago, the one where I refused to co-sign. I had saved it without thinking. Now, it might save everything. March 3rd, 8:47 a.m., Maricopa County Superior Court. I arrived 30 minutes early. Charcoal gray suit, hair perfect, every detail controlled, because I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me shaken. The courthouse smelled like old wood and cleaning chemicals. My heels echoed against the marble floors as I walked toward courtroom 2B. Every step sounded louder than it should have. Ethan was already there, navy suit, leather briefcase, calm, focused. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Like I'm about to watch my family lie under oath." "They probably will," he said evenly. "That's why we brought evidence." We took seats near the front. The room was smaller than I expected, maybe 40 seats, a raised bench for the judge, 2 tables facing forward, plaintiff and defense. At 8:55, they walked in. My father first, wearing a suit I'd never seen before. My mother behind him, gripping his arm like she might collapse without it. Vanessa followed, eyes red, whether from crying or strategy, I couldn't tell. Brandon came last, avoiding my gaze completely. Behind them, Linda, Emily, a few other relatives, the gallery filling with witnesses to the version of me they had already decided to believe. They took their seats across from me, close enough that I could see my mom's shaking hands, my father's rigid posture, Vanessa leaning in, whispering something to their lawyer. Not one of them looked at me. Ethan leaned closer. "Remember this," he said quietly. "You have the truth. They have a story. Let's see which one holds." The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone stood. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Rebecca Lawson presiding. The judge entered, sharp eyes, silver hair pulled back, reading glasses low on her nose, no warmth, no patience. This was it. Their lawyer stood first. Richard Coleman, gray hair, expensive watch, the confidence of someone who had done this hundreds of times. "Your Honor," he began, pacing slowly, "this case is about a broken promise." He turned slightly toward the courtroom. About a daughter who agreed to support her family and then chose to walk away when the responsibility became real. I kept my expression neutral, gave them nothing. "We will show that the defendant made a clear verbal commitment to assist with this mortgage," he continued. Her own sister witnessed that promise, made during a family Christmas dinner in 2022. Then he turned. Plaintiff calls Vanessa Nichols Carter to the stand. She walked to the stand like she was being led to something she couldn't escape. Hands clasped, eyes lowered, the perfect image of reluctant honesty. "Mrs. Nichols Carter," Coleman began, "can you tell the court about the Christmas dinner 2 years ago?" Vanessa nodded, dabbing at her eyes. "Skylar was there. We were talking about how expensive housing had become. My mom mentioned wanting to help me buy a home for my kids. And what did the defendant say?" Her voice trembled. "She said, 'I'll think about it.' And then she nodded. We all saw it." "And you understood that to mean she agreed?" "Yes," Vanessa said softly. "In our family, when someone nods, it means yes. That's just how we communicate." My father testified next. Same narrative, same rehearsed emotion. "She's my daughter," Jeremy said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I raised her. I never imagined she'd turn her back on us like this." Not once did Coleman mention the mortgage paperwork. Not once did he bring up the signature I supposedly signed. Their entire case rested on a nod at a dinner table, a moment no one could prove or disprove. They were avoiding the documents because they knew the documents would destroy them. Ethan stood, slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch just long enough. "Your Honor, my client never entered into any verbal agreement," he said. "Saying you'll think about something is not a promise, not a contract, And certainly not consent. Coleman shifted in his chair. Vanessa stared at the floor. But more importantly, Ethan continued, even if such an agreement had existed, it would be irrelevant. Because there is a mortgage document bearing my client's name. He paused. A document she did not sign. The entire courtroom went still. I'd like to enter Exhibit A, he said, the mortgage application for 7321 Desert Willow Drive, listing Skylar Nichols as co-signer. Copies were passed forward. And Exhibit B, flight records and hotel receipts, proving my client was in San Diego, California, on the date this document was allegedly signed and notarized. Judge Lawson studied the pages. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Mr. Brooks, she said, are you suggesting this signature was forged? I'm not suggesting, Your Honor, Ethan replied calmly. I'm stating it as fact. He stepped toward the display. The mortgage signature appeared on screen, large, undeniable. Ms. Nichols, he said, turning to me, is this your signature? I stood. My voice didn't shake. No, it is not. Would you please provide 3 samples of your signature for the court? I walked forward, took the pen, signed my name 3 times, the way I always did, the backward curve on the S, the distinct loop in Nichols. Ethan placed my fresh signatures beside the one on the mortgage. Even from the back of the room, the difference was obvious. The signature on the mortgage curves forward, he said. Ms. Nichols' authentic signature curves backward. She did not sign this document. Someone else did. From the gallery, I heard a sharp inhale. Linda. And just like that, the room shifted. If you're still here, I want to know, what would you have done? Paid to keep the peace? Or fought back, even when everyone turned against you? And if you want to see how this ends, because what happened next changed everything. Ethan wasn't finished. He reached for another folder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit C, an email chain between Vanessa Nichols Carter and Daniel Ruiz, the loan officer who processed this application. Coleman stood immediately. Objection, relevance. These emails directly demonstrate how my client's identity was added to this mortgage without her knowledge or consent, Ethan replied. They are central to our defense. Judge Lawson gave a small nod. Overruled. Proceed. Ethan began reading. Each word landed heavier than the last. Email from Vanessa Nichols Carter, dated September 10th, 2023. Is there any way to add my sister to the application without her being physically present? She's traveling for work. I watched Vanessa. The color drained from her face. Brandon turned slowly, staring at her. Response from Daniel Ruiz. If someone else handles the paperwork, we can proceed as long as the documents are properly notarized. Ethan paused. Then, final email from Mrs. Nichols Carter. She can't do remote signing. She's at a conference, but my dad can take care of it for her. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Whispers. Gasps. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face shifted, from pale to red. Ethan turned toward Vanessa. Mrs. Nichols Carter, he said. Did you write these emails? Objection, Coleman started. Overruled. Vanessa's voice came out strained. I thought it was okay. My dad said he would handle everything. The words hung in the air, and then everything broke. She was blaming him, her own father, in open court, in front of everyone. Jeremy's head snapped toward her. Vanessa! He told me it was fine, she said, her voice cracking. He said Skylar wouldn't even notice. Brandon half stood, then sat back down, staring at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. The gavel slammed. Order, Judge Lawson said sharply. We will have order in this courtroom. But it was too late. Everyone had heard. Everyone understood. Judge Lawson removed her glasses, folded them slowly, set them down on the bench. The room went completely still. You could feel it. Everyone was waiting. Judge Lawson looked down at the documents, then back up. I've reviewed the plaintiff's complaint, she began. They are alleging a verbal agreement, a nod during a Christmas dinner, as the basis for demanding $745,000 from the defendant. She paused. then turned her gaze directly toward my parents. I have also reviewed the defense's evidence, travel records confirming the defendant was in San Diego, California on the date this mortgage was allegedly signed, signature comparisons showing clear inconsistencies, and email communications between the plaintiff's own witness and a loan officer explicitly discussing how to include the defendant on the application without her presence. My mother broke. Not the controlled crying from before, real tears. This court is not here to enforce family expectations, Judge Lawson continued. It exists to enforce the law. Her voice sharpened slightly. And the law is clear. A verbal agreement, if one even existed, does not obligate someone to pay $745,000, particularly when the documentary evidence strongly suggests that same individual's identity may have been used without consent. She straightened the papers in front of her. The plaintiff's case relies entirely on testimony about a conversation. The defense has provided documented proof that the defendant did not sign the mortgage and was not even in the state when it was allegedly notarized. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it. Then, I am dismissing this case with prejudice. The gavel came down, and just like that, everything shifted. Furthermore, she added, I am referring the mortgage documents and related communications to the district attorney's office for review of potential fraud. A sharp gasp from the gallery. Jeremy gripped the edge of the table. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. Dismissed. The word echoed in my head. For the first time in 6 months, I breathed. But it wasn't over. Ethan stood immediately. Your Honor, while the plaintiff's case has been dismissed, my client has a counterclaim to present. Judge Lawson nodded. Proceed. Skylar Nichols is filing suit against Jeremy Nichols, Chelsea Nichols, and Vanessa Nichols Carter for identity fraud, forgery, and damages to her credit and professional reputation. The room erupted into quiet murmurs. Coleman looked stunned. He hadn't prepared for this. We are requesting immediate removal of my client's name from all mortgage documents, Ethan continued. Additionally, we are seeking reimbursement for legal fees incurred in defending against a fraudulent claim, along with compensation for damage to her credit, damage that placed her career in the financial sector at risk. A bank representative stood up from the back. Your Honor, Desert Financial Credit Union will fully cooperate. We have already initiated an internal investigation into how this application was processed. Judge Lawson made a note. The counterclaim will proceed to formal hearing, she said. However, based on the evidence presented today, I am ordering an immediate review of the mortgage in question. If fraud is confirmed, the defendant's name should never have been included and will be removed. Then she looked at me. Miss Nichols, do you wish to add anything? I stood. My legs felt steady. More steady than I expected. I looked at them. My parents. Vanessa. The relatives who had come to watch me fall. I never wanted this, I said. My voice was calm, clear. I didn't ask to be placed on a mortgage I never agreed to. I didn't ask to be sued by my own family. A small pause. You chose this. Instead of apologizing, remember that. I sat down. No dramatic speech, no shouting, just the truth. And sometimes, that's enough. The bailiff called for recess. People started moving again. Voices returned. I gathered my things slowly, letting it settle in. We had won. Not completely. The counterclaim still lay ahead. But the attack? That was over. They had tried to weaponize the law against me, and it had turned back on them. Ethan placed a hand on my shoulder. You did well in there. I told the truth, I said. That's all. He gave a small nod. Sometimes that's the hardest part. I stepped out into the hallway. The fluorescent lights didn't feel as harsh anymore. By the window, Grandpa Walter was waiting. He looked older than he had at Thanksgiving, more tired, but when he saw me, something softened in his expression. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Your grandmother would be too. Thank you, I said, for telling me to check the notary date. He gave a faint smile. Least I could do, should have done more, behind us. Footsteps. Fast, sharp. Vanessa burst through the courtroom doors, Brandon close behind her. Her mascara was smeared, composure gone. "You destroyed this family," she shouted. I didn't turn, didn't answer, didn't give her anything. Then Brandon spoke, not to me, to her. "You lied to me." His voice was low, controlled. "You said she agreed. You said this was all legal." "Brandon, I can explain." "Can you?" he cut in. "Because I just heard you admit, in court, that you helped forge your own sister's signature." I kept walking, didn't stop, didn't look back. Behind me, their argument escalated. Vanessa crying, Brandon demanding answers, the sound of a marriage beginning to fracture under the weight of truth. Ethan caught up with me near the elevator. "That went better than expected," he said. I pressed the button, watched the numbers tick down. "Did it?" I replied quietly. "My parents tried to steal from me. My sister testified against me. And I had to prove I wasn't lying, in front of a judge." He didn't respond. There wasn't really anything to say. 2 months later, everything started to settle, one piece at a time. First, the bank completed its internal investigation. Daniel Ruiz had violated multiple compliance policies: failure to verify identity, failure to confirm consent, processing documents without proper due diligence. He was terminated. The memo wasn't public, but somehow it made its way to Ethan. The notary? Scott Delaney. A friend of my father's, from a local bowling league. He had notarized the mortgage documents in my parents' living room, while I was over 300 miles away in another state. The Arizona Secretary of State revoked his license after a formal complaint. My name was officially removed from the mortgage. Everything tied to it, the application, the liability, the damage to my credit, was erased, like it had never existed. My credit score recovered within 90 days. The district attorney's office reviewed the case. In the end, they declined to file criminal charges. The DA cited insufficient evidence of intent to defraud the bank directly. First offense: family context. No direct intent to defraud the bank. But both my father and Vanessa received civil penalties, formal warnings, a record that would follow them if they ever tried anything like this again. My counterclaim didn't go to trial. It settled. They agreed to cover my legal fees in full, $28,000. It was never about the money, it was about accountability. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. My own family had forged my name, dragged me through court, destroyed my reputation in public, and the consequence was a fine and a warning. But I had something back. My name, my credit, my integrity. And sometimes, that's all a victory is. Not winning, just surviving. And sometimes, surviving is enough. The family I grew up with didn't survive the trial. Vanessa and Brandon separated 3 months later. He moved out of the Scottsdale house, the one that started all of this, filed for legal separation. Last I heard, they were negotiating custody. He told a mutual friend he couldn't trust her anymore. Not after what he heard in that courtroom. My parents had to sell the house. Without my name attached, they couldn't keep up with the payments. Their retirement savings, already drained for the down payment, was gone. They downsized to a small 2-bedroom condo, in a neighborhood they used to drive past without ever stopping. My mom sent me one email after everything was finalized. 5 words. "You ruined us. Remember that." I didn't respond. Some accusations don't need answers, they expose themselves. In April, Linda Harper called me, unexpected. Her voice sounded different, quieter. "I didn't know the whole story," she said. "About the signature, about the emails. I just believed what Vanessa told everyone." A pause. "I'm sorry, Skylar. I should have asked you." I sat with that for a moment. An apology I never thought I'd hear. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Then I ended the call. It didn't undo anything, but it reminded me of something important. Not everyone chooses to stay blind forever. That spring, Grandpa Walter sent me a handwritten letter. The ink was uneven. his handwriting shaky, but the message was clear. I've updated my will. You're taken care of. You deserve someone in this family to stand by you. 6 weeks later, he passed away, peacefully, in his sleep. At the funeral, I sat in the back row. No one came over, no one spoke, but I was there. And somehow, that was enough. 6 months after the trial, right now, as I'm telling you this, everything feels different. I got promoted, senior accountant. My boss pulled me aside when he told me. I've seen people break under less than what you went through, he said. You didn't. That kind of resilience, you don't see it often. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted answers. Why did I tolerate being treated like that for so long? Why did I keep showing up to holidays where I was the joke? Why did I believe I deserved less than everyone else in that family? Dr. Reed said something I still think about. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us teach us to accept what should never be acceptable. Healing means unlearning that. I'm still unlearning. I legally changed my last name, Burke, my mother's maiden name, before everything. It felt right. Not like I was erasing where I came from, but choosing who I become. My circle is small now, but it's real. People who don't ask me to sacrifice my boundaries just to keep them comfortable. People who check in, not because they need something, but because they care. Ethan and I meet for coffee every few weeks. We talk about everything except the case. Bad courtroom movies, work, life. The past only comes up when I choose to bring it there. The silence took time to get used to. No more crisis calls. No more guilt. No more holidays where I felt like an outsider in my own family. Now, there's just peace. And it's strange how much space opens up when you stop carrying expectations that were never yours to hold. Last month, I wrote a letter, not to send, just to say what needed to be said. Dr. Reed suggested it. I sat at my kitchen table and let myself be honest. Mom and Dad, I loved you. I spent my entire life trying to earn something you gave Vanessa without effort. I worked harder, asked for less, and still, I was never enough. You saw my boundaries as betrayal, my success as something to use. When I said no, you heard rejection. When I protected myself, you called it selfishness. I didn't destroy this family. The lies did. The forgery did. The decision to take from me instead of respecting my answer. I was your daughter. I deserved to be asked, not taken from. I deserved honesty, not a courtroom. Maybe one day I'll forgive you. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'm done waiting for an apology that isn't coming. I hope you find peace. I'm finding mine. Without you. Skylar. I read it 3 times. Let myself feel everything. The anger, the grief, and something unexpected. Relief. Then I deleted it. Because Dr. Reed was right. The point wasn't sending it. The point was finally saying it. Closure doesn't always come from an apology. Sometimes, it comes from accepting you'll never get one. That evening, I closed my laptop, poured a glass of wine, watched the sun set over the city. No one was coming to fix what happened. No one was going to make it right. But I was still here, still standing. And slowly, that started to feel like enough. Today is just an ordinary Saturday. Sunlight coming through the windows, coffee on the table, a book I keep meaning to finish. The kind of quiet that used to feel lonely, but now feels like freedom. My phone buzzes, a text from Ethan. Coffee tomorrow? Bring your brutal honesty. I smile, type back. Always. Sometimes I think about what my dad asked me that night, the question he meant as an insult. What do you even need that money for? Now I have an answer. I need it for a life where no one can use me, for the freedom to say no, without explaining myself, for mornings like this, quiet, peaceful, entirely mine. On my bookshelf there's a photo, me and Grandpa Walter, taken last year. His last Christmas. We slipped away from the family gathering for an hour, just the two of us, and a waiter offered to take the picture. He's smiling in it, really smiling. On the back, in his unsteady handwriting, "The strongest people are the ones who know when to walk away." I did walk away. Not because I didn't love them, but because loving myself mattered more than earning theirs. They called me selfish, cold, the daughter who chose money over blood. But I didn't choose money. I chose integrity. I chose ownership over my own name, my own decisions, my own life. Some families lift you up. Some teach you how to survive being pushed down. Mine taught me that no is a complete sentence, that keeping records isn't paranoia, it's protection, and that sometimes the people you're born to are strangers, while the people you choose become your real family. I didn't win because I had the better lawyer. I won because I never stopped believing I was worth defending. If my story gave you anything, let it be this. Pay attention to what people do when you say no. That's where the truth shows up. Not in apologies, not in promises, but in how quickly they turn your boundary into a problem. Start documenting. Start asking questions. And stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from you doubting your own reality. You don't need a dramatic breaking point to change your life. Sometimes it's a quiet decision. I'm not doing this anymore. And then you follow through. Not once. Not when it's easy. Every time. Because the moment you start backing your own words with action is the moment people realize they can't rewrite you anymore. And that changes everything. If this story stayed with you, if any part of it felt familiar, take a second to like this video. It really helps more people who need to hear this find it. And I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? I read every single one. If you know someone who's still stuck in a situation like this, share this video with them. Sometimes one story is enough to make someone feel less alone. And because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is finally choose yourself.